If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Tonight, Clint and BZ are going to tear through the gristle of today's screaming headlines and rip out the sinewy tendons of truth ensconced within, all from the hoary streets of Sacramento Fornicalia, exposing the trembling toadies, the sniveling jackanapes, and the frivolous fopdoodles that are infesting leftist and progressive brain-housing groups nationally, featuring the effervescent contrarian sackheads Clint. Right over there. Let's see. He is right over there.
I'm right, and you're over.
That's him. Right there.
Or that way. That way.
And also featuring the unrestrained bulbosity of the Mark I Model 1 Zeppmeister right here, where we are doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts right here in the Shat Show. The Sackheads against tyranny. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, boy, do we ever have a really big shoe.
It's a very big shoe
for you
it's
tonight.
Really big.
Because, you know, these monitors, they seem like they keep getting further left over here. I'm going to have to...
Now, monitors, are you talking like media monitors? People that like are on shows, monitoring the television?
The two monitors that are right here. I should have done it before.
The literal monitors.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking like the people that are like monitoring shows. They're moving farther left because it's a political-based show.
Yeah, people can't see this, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screens staring at me right here. And,
I can turn this one too.
And
there.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Okay.
7.
And you're looking at one, and you're looking at your phone, and you're looking at the studio monitor up here so that you can see what we're seeing on the video aspect of it. So complicateder and complicateder. That's a new word I just made up. Welcome to the Shat Room. It's not a regular chat room, boys and girls. It's the Shat Room because this is the Shat Show. So welcome to Michael John Pasqua, Dave Milner, and 2 viewers who I will not unmask, and they will remain masked until they themselves decide to unmask themselves. And so before the show, here's what happens. Clint and I, we text each other like crazy, and we send messages back and forth to each other in the preceding week, and we say, okay, here's a story, and then you'll send me one. Here's a story, and then I'll send you one back, and there's a story, and so
then you'll send me like a gay picture or something.
I will. Yeah,
like a happy picture because like people are
right,
happy in there.
certainly.
I don't want people to think that we're homophobic here.
Because we're not down. We're not Debbie Downers right
No.
here. And we're not on opioids or anything like that. So we don't need to be brought up. We're naturally ebullient
good looking
and effervescent.
And good looking.
Like I say.
Well, and good looking. Naturally good looking.
Okay. Well, you fall into that category. Maybe not me. Now, folks, focus like a laser beam on this stellar individual right here. If you're watching on video...
If you're watching on video, I'm sorry.
This is Heads CLINT right there. And you can tell that we're on the air because the blue sign over on his left, your right, says that we're on the air. But this is interesting. Now, we're kind of semi-promoters of the AAF, which is not the Army Air Force from World War II. It's the Alliance of American Football. And we talked about watching a couple of games. I watched not this past Saturday's game, but I watched the first game between the San Diego Fleet and the San Antonio Commanders?
Commanders.
Mm-hmm. And apparently the Commanders beat the bejesus out of
Not the bejesus.
Okay, they beat
Not
them.
the bejesus.
They beat them. Oh, Whiskey Dale. Good to see you there. And an additional 2 viewers. Good to see you there. Okay, well, they did beat the Fleet. They beat the Fleet. It rhymes. Anyway, in the meantime, you got yourself a sweatshirt.
Yes.
I'm going to point this out here, folks. This is Sackhead Clint's San Diego Fleet sweatshirt that you can get. And none of us are getting any extra money for this.
No.
But
nor are we getting tickets.
Nor are we getting
mentioned in the AAF.
or
we get nothing.
Any kind of promotional junk from this.
We get nothing.
What we do have is we have a unified hatred of the NFL.
Correct.
Because the NFL has decided that it's going to lean left.
And
it's not going to embrace what it once did, American values, etc. They're not big fans of the military. Et cetera, et cetera. We've had our rants for quite some time about the NFL. And so that's why we embrace the AAF, the Alliance of American Football. And we had a discussion just before the show. And I noticed that, like I said, it seems like the AAF is trying to indicate that it's kind of like a farm area, farm team, I guess you might say, a series of farm teams. Mm-hmm. Potentially for the NFL. But then you were indicating that that's not exactly their goal. Their goal, they said, or they have been saying, is in about 10 years' time or whatever it is.
I said I think that's their goal, but they've been saying they are not a D league. They are not a development league for the NFL.
Okay.
Yeah, they've said that specifically, that they want to be. They are a standalone league, that they are playing they're not competing directly with the NFL right now. But that they are a standalone league, and when asked if they were going to be competing with if they were a D league for the NFL or competing, they said no, we are not a D league for the NFL. They made it very clear that they are a standalone football league.
Who said essentially, or were thinking essentially, that in 10 years roughly they could supplant the NFL.
I hope they do.
I do too.
I hope they do. They haven't come right out and said that, because if they say that, the NFL will crush them. But I hope they do.
Yeah, at this point, that could be very true. And I kind of get tired of saying this, but I'm going to say it again, even though I am tired of saying it. Clint and I bop ideas and stories back and forth. Oh, Alaskan, welcome. Good to see you in here in the chat room. We bop stories back and forth to each other. Mm-hmm. And this has been an incredibly target-rich environment this past week. Just for example, just today, there have been a ton of stories that have come out and been released. Well, okay, we're going to cover some of those, but you also sent me something today that was... how do I introduce this?
Are we going to do this now?
Yeah, why not?
So,
and the reason I'm saying that, the reason I'm suggesting that is that when the Sackheads radio show stopped because Sean, his schedule had a bunch of conflicts, and that's why he couldn't be here on Wednesdays, and so now it's you and I with the Chat Show. Mm-hmm. We named it the Sackheads Against Tyranny. So the emphasis was on freedom, liberty, the
American way,
the opposition of tyranny, because it's, in our opinion, beginning to manifest itself in altogether way too many ways these days. And you came across an article that was from the Constitution Society.
I did.
And you said, hey, take a peek at this, and maybe we can discuss it later tonight. And I thought it was a great article. It had a lot of important things to say. It had a very important surprise for me because I didn't realize its origin, its source. And then I made a copy for me tonight so that I can reference the article, and I made a copy for you so that we can discuss it because it does, in fact, have a lot to do with freedom, liberty, tyranny, and as you mentioned before the show, socialism, as in that's kind of what I'd like to see you address. Is you brought this article to the forefront. It goes right. I mean, this article fits right into our Shot Show wheelhouse. And Capitalist Pig is in chat. Good to see you, Capitalist Pig.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Because clearly you are a capitalist pig.
It is good to be here.
It's good to be a capitalist pig. And one viewer. And also Alaskan Dave Milner, Whiskey Dale, Michael John Pasqua. So welcome, and thanks for everybody being here. But let me ask you this. You brought this article to my attention today. How did it come to your attention? Oh, and by the way, I need to say this.
Yes.
Clint brought in. Here, I need to show this. Clint brought in Lemonade's Girl Scout cookies.
I did.
So he and I we've been hitting the Girl Scout cookies. And so this is me with a Lemonade Girl Scout cookie. Anyway, how did this article happen to enter your wheelhouse, if you will, Sackhead's Clint Erebus?
So I was conducting some research, and I guess I'm going to make a short story long.
Okay.
So while you eat those cookies, which are ridiculously delicious, by the way.
I am.
So I've been, and I know we've talked about this offline as well as online. I've been just absolutely stunned how socialism has taken root in our country to the extent where we have outwardly, openly avowed socialists in office. And we've had socialists in office before. Like, do you remember Maxine Waters?
Oh, sure.
When she was making a statement, she said, "Well, this socialist is," and she had to backtrack from that.
Right. Bernie Sanders announced just yesterday he's going to be back. He's not going away.
Okay.
And he is a clear socialist. And that's what I loved. Okay, relatively. That's what I respected about Bernie Sanders is that as opposed to the rest of these tards, he'll tell you up front exactly what he is. He's a socialist.
He is. And they they're outward. They're open now. Trump even had to say we will never be a socialist country. Socialism is in direct violation of the Constitution. So anyways, but I'm shocked that we are, and I shouldn't be, right? Because this has been coming for a long time. So we've known that since the progressive movement and the Woodrow Wilson administration and kind of all the things that we've seen happening in our country, but the fact that we have outwardly socialist people elected to office, and the fact that we have such a large percentage of younger folks that and even adults that think that socialism is okay or a good idea, I think is problematic. So I started kind of delving more into this because this is, look, I have kids. Everybody that listens to the show know I have kids, and I make it a point to discuss with the kids, age appropriately, of course, liberty and freedom and the history of our country and the foundational principles and so forth, and really kind of wanted to get into the crux of the ideology, I guess. And I came across this quite by accident, I guess. And you know what's funny is this is one of those, I had one of those aha moments this week, because I think although I knew intellectually, I never really fully understood how far back socialism goes. And there is socialism was not an idea that Karl Marx came up with. And I knew that, but I never.
That's why I think this article is brilliant, because you pointed that out to me today. And after reading this and you making the mention of that, you said, "Okay, look at the times, look at the dates, look at Marx."
And so I think I kind of had I had this kind of aha, oh my God moment. And again, I knew intellectually that this person's ideals and writings before, and I knew and was familiar with Karl Marx, and I never really had that kind of that aha moment of holy cow, socialism has been something that has been addressed for centuries, and was even rejected by our founding fathers. And I'm gonna take you back to the French Revolution, and one of the big pushers of the theology, or the theory and the philosophies being pushed at that time came from Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And Rousseau was born in Geneva. I think you found that you did a little bio on him. He was
right.
born in Geneva, but he was a philosopher, and a lot of his thoughts and his philosophies really kind of influenced the Enlightenment period throughout Europe, and particularly the French Revolution. So, in reading some of his writings, one of the things I came up with, I want to pull the original article up that I have saved still, but there's through Stanford, Plato.stanford.edu has a pretty good write up on Rousseau and kind of who he is and what a lot of his philosophies and so forth were. But you know me, right? I like to go to the source, and it has been probably 15 years since I have read, and not just read, but read and contemplated Rousseau, because you can read somebody's writings and not really digest it, right? You can just kind of read it, skim through it, kind of like.
And you brought this to my attention as well.
Yeah. So you can kind of read somebody's
by the French.
Yeah, you can kind of read somebody's writings and just kind of skim through it, right? Like you can have somebody who reads the Bible, but unless they really take a look and study and digest what's being said, it really doesn't click, right? Or you can read Plato or Socrates or name the philosopher or the topic or the study. And reading and understanding and really digesting is two very different things. Mm-hmm. And I want to give credit to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk wrote an article this week on Americans must wake up and fight against the socialist movement that's already well underway. And it's an article on Fox News.
So that's where you got that referenced you to this?
Yes. So Charlie Kirk in his article referenced kind of socialism, and he made a reference to Rousseau. And that's when I was like, holy shit, holy cow, holy stuff. Because I thought back to, oh my gosh, I've read some of his stuff, and you remember hearing about how the Americans were first very much in favor of the French Revolution.
Yes.
They were, and then they thought maybe not such a good idea, because the philosophies of Rousseau were in conflict with the philosophies of our founding fathers. So I reread I reread with a critical eye and digested, and there were from his social contract, there are three. I mean, the whole thing is really good, and it's short. It's a pretty decent read. I sent you the whole thing.
Right, and I printed it out for both of us so that we have copies.
But there are three chapters that are really, in my opinion, kind of the most succinct in terms of framing what his thoughts are on social compacts, basically. And they are chapters 6 through 8. Chapter 6 is called The Social Compact. And it really kind of gets into social responsibility and so forth. And then number 7 is the sovereign. And then number 8 is the civil state. And this can be summed up with really one sentence. And it's interesting to look at his writings in totality, right? But in chapter 8, the civil state, the first sentence is really kind of what hit it for me when I looked at that, and I said, I remember reading that before, and holy crap, now I'm looking at it through a new lens. And I'm going to read it to you, and it says, the passage from the state of nature to the civil state produces a very remarkable change in man by substituting justice for instinct in his conduct and giving his actions the morality they had formerly lacked. And the second next sentence just it says, then only when the voice of duty takes the place of physical impulses and the right of appetite does man, who so far had considered only himself, find that he is forced to act on different principles and to consult his reason before listening to his inclinations. But that first part, the passage from the state of nature to the civil state, produces a very remarkable change in man. What he's basically talking about, because you can read through his writings and it sounds very beautiful. He's talking about freedom. He's talking about liberty. He's talking about all these things. And you read that and you're like, you know what? The freedom he's talking about is not the individual liberties or freedoms of the individual person, because those are the individual impulses, the individual appetite. You're considering just yourself. And he's talking about the freedoms or the liberties of the collective, of the society. And that's very important to understand for a lot of different reasons. But here's why I think it's important today. And one more note on this. When he talks about the state of nature, he's talking about natural rights. He's talking about what Hobbes had written about. He's talking about what our founding fathers believed, that you and I, and everybody who's listening, and those who are not listening to this show, are endowed by the Creator, capital C, God, with certain unalienable rights. We have rights, individual rights and liberties, just because we are alive. And so freedom is about individual liberty in the minds of the founding fathers of our country and what I believe is most conservative Americans today, versus the civil state. So from the state of nature to the civil state. So to the rights of the collective, to the freedoms, to the liberties of the collective, the civil, not the individual, not the state of nature. And that's important, because when you hear
critically important.
When I hear Democrats talking about freedom and democracy and the American way and freedoms and liberty, not that I ever hear them say liberty, but those ideas of freedom. When you hear like Nancy Pelosi talking about freedom, right?
Yeah.
You are talking about that. We have two very different views of freedom. And I think that's important for us to remember for today.
Well, yeah, and it goes back to the U.S. Constitution as well. The thing that you want to point out about this is that socialism predates the Russian version, shall we say. And you make an excellent point in terms of people say this is what they want, but I think it's people that are actually staggeringly, remarkably, almost insanely ignorant of the past. I've called that historical Alzheimer's for many, many years. And there are a bunch of other stories. This is also interesting.
What is it? So I've been wanting to kind of talk to you about it. What is it you thought when you read this?
I began to read it, and I thought initially this makes sense, but there was something that just, I can't say didn't resonate, but there was something really kind of wrong with this. And I thought, okay, because I know you, and because I know that you're a contrarian, but I know that you like to, you are very skilled and educated in terms of the history of the United States, and also a great deal of the history of the world, because I know that your brain is just kind of wired for history. And that's what, quite frankly, that's what you and I have a great deal in common, is our appreciation for history. So that made me want to go back to the original source of this, which is a site called the Constitution Society at constitution.org. Now, I have a book here that a lot of people may or may not read. It's called The Coming Insurrection, and this was written by a number of French people who make reference in this to the French Revolution. The French are a complicated lot of frogs. But then when I discovered that this was originally penned by Rousseau, I put on the brakes. I put on the literary brakes and said, okay, now don't fall into a trap thinking that everything is wonderful. And you may find that it's gilded in a way that if you didn't read it completely, you would go, well, that sounds good. I mean, okay, gosh, what I mean by that is back up. And I think this is what resonates with so many people today with, hey, but doesn't a free job for everybody, doesn't that sound good? Who wouldn't want that? Medicare for everyone, health care for everyone. Who wouldn't want that? Doesn't that sound good? And free babysitting and child care perennially in perpetuity. Doesn't that sound good? Wouldn't everybody want something like that? It's kind of the, yeah, boy, that really sounds great in some purple-skied planet that is nowhere near this solar system and is certainly nowhere near the planet Earth. You have to look at each individual thing that leftists are proffering, and you have to read very carefully between the lines, because if you are not well educated, you'll look at the initial gloss on the object and you won't see really what's inside.
Well, I mean, Rousseau talks about it right there, right? When you're talking about, free everything for everybody and you're even property rights, right, which is really at the heart of the socialist movement. They do not believe in property rights at all.
No property rights for you, property rights for the state.
But it makes sense when they're talking about freedom, because when everybody has education, everybody's free. When everybody has a job, there's freedom and freedom. Well, their definition of freedom is what Rousseau said, and I'm going to quote right here. Each of us puts his person and all his power in common under the supreme direction of the general will. And in our corporate capacity, we receive each member as an indivisible part of the whole. So when they're talking about when Democrats and the progressives and the socialists, and we have hard left candidates now, which is why this is so important to understand.
Exactly. Who represents this will?
Yeah, it's the collective.
The collective.
The collective.
Who is the collective? Who gets to make the decisions in this collective? Is it you, Clint?
It is not me.
Is it me, BZ?
No, it is not you,
and
BZ.
It's not anyone in the chat room or listening live or listening in podcast or driving a truck right now on America's highways. It's not you that's going to be making these decisions. It's the government.
Yep. But the government, that is the power and the general will at work. And that's the scary part. Is that we have an education system now where we don't teach our kids, not we like you and I, but we as a collective, you like that? We don't teach our kids what this really means. We don't teach our kids where this has failed. We don't teach our kids what actually happened in the French Revolution, how bloody it was, or that it was rejected by the founders, or why that is. We don't talk about these things, and I don't think we really don't get into the weeds about what this truly means, because the language is really flowery and it sounds really nice and it's bright and shiny and it's in a pretty package and everybody is going to be happy and get all this really cool stuff. But the reality is, if that happens and everybody gets all this really cool stuff, first of all, that cannot last long because the wealth will not support that. There is not enough capital in the world
perfect
to support that.
Word is the leftists love to use this, unsustainable. We're going to hold that thought. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue on this. You are listening to Heads CLINT over there, and I am Heads BZ. We're going to go to a break, and you are listening to The Shot Show, the Sackheads Against Tyranny, right here on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only, all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know, I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. You're listening to the Sackheads against tyranny. I just happen to be the bloviating Zeppelin. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. This is the Shat Show. We are the Sackheads against tyranny. And you can find this every Wednesday night right here. Go to shrmedia.com. You can listen and chat in the Shat Room. Right now in the Shat Room, we have Whiskey Dale. We have the Alaskan, Dave Milner. We have the Capitalist Pig. We have Kaiser Schuff and one viewer who is still not revealed. His or her name is not revealed. Come one, come all. You are always welcome to the Shat Show. And it's not a regular chat room, as you would expect. It's a Shat Room because of the nature of the show itself. We were talking earlier before the break about Brousseau, and Heads CLINT had been talking about the social contract, and let's see, what's the other one? The sovereign and the civil contract. And what he had been doing is pointing out that this article from Constitution.org was basically a great indicator, letting people know, if you read it properly, that socialism predated the Soviets. Everyone seems to think that socialism simply emerged like a lovely world-saving child erupting from the loins of the Russians, and no, it didn't quite do that. They were talking about socialism. The history of socialism goes back to the Greeks. It goes back to the French and the French Revolution. The founding fathers were trying to figure out, okay, well, when we get a government, what kind of a government do we really want? And they had a whole ton of choices to make, and they had tons of examples in front of them. One of those was essentially socialism. I'm sure that they chewed through as much of that as they possibly could, and they discovered that they didn't want a democracy. They wanted a republic, if we can keep it, that is. So this was an excellent article to read, and I'm glad that is there anything that you want to add to that? The lovely and scintillating Sackheads CLINT.
Nothing I guess I really necessarily want to add on this. I mean, I guess it was it was kind of a big, like I said, I read it, and reading it in that context was kind of a big aha moment again. And just reading it with that in perspective, and like I said, it's been 10, 15 years since I've read Rousseau and really kind of digested it. So it was important for me, given the circumstances that we face in this country today, to reread that with the lens of everything that's happening in our country now, and particularly with the socialism lens on it, and to digest it and break it down. I would encourage, look, if our listeners have time, I would encourage them to certainly read it and digest it. And look, if you really have time, I mean, read Marx afterwards. But I think it's important, and particularly with the rejection of his ideas that some of our founders have. And as the French Revolution went along, when they were like, yeah, we disagree with that.
Yeah, but they had it to examine. It was in front of them. It was a type of government that they could either accept or reject, and it was rejected on its face, which is thank God that they did. Bernie Sanders, he's back. He's a socialist. The left is pushing lefter than the left ever has before. And that's, as far as I can tell, that's going to be the foreseeable future of the Democrats, is them doing that. And a lot of people are already saying, okay, what's the perfect combination? What's the perfect storm for the left coming in 2020? Which is shocking because, let me ask you a question. Clint, doesn't it seem like 2016 was, I don't know, a couple of months ago?
Seems like it was a couple of years ago.
We just elected a president, and then we had some midterms, and now it's 2019. And in 2016, 2020 seems so damn far away, except it's next year. Another presidential election is coming next year, and everybody's lining up to make sure that they get a big piece of it. And just like the Democrats didn't do in 2016, now the Democrats look like they're going to have a massive, an assload of people to choose from. And a lot of people are saying, hey, how about that Joe Biden? And how about that Beto O'Rourke? Wouldn't they make a great ticket?
Well, I think that, how old is Biden?
He's got to be, Bernie Sanders
77.
is 78.
77, I thought.
Joe is maybe a year off of that. He's got to be in his late 70s, I would assume. Beto O'Rourke, fresh off the truck in Texas, trying desperately to turn Texas as purple as he can. Not quite achieving it, but certainly not giving up. Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren. I'm going to go get me a beer. Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. I got to play this right now because you brought this up last week, and I felt bad because I didn't have this available. And I'm going to have to move my lemon cookies here to play this. But you mentioned something, and I think it needs to be heard. This is an audio cut that needs to be heard. You mentioned that there's a House Democrat named Representative Gwen Moore who went through a list of what in any other country would be a long list of serious major accomplishments by a president, in this case, President Trump. And she was incredibly dismissive of all the things that, which are significant accomplishments and a great measure. So here's Democrat Representative Gwen Moore, who is heralding and feting the accomplishments of President Trump. Okay. Are we going to hear this?
GDP is great. Unemployment is at an all-time low. African Americans are doing well. Hispanics are doing well.
Yeah.
Wages are rising at the fastest pace in 10 years.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Wages are rising at the fastest pace in 10 years. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay. She actually said this. I felt bad that I couldn't get that, and you had to send it to me. Now, there's another audio cut that you mentioned last week that I didn't have the chance to get, and this is Liz Cheney, who is making reference to AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, which is such a piece of crap, but I just enjoyed the way, as you pointed out, Liz Cheney was doing her level best to kind of skewer this.
Recognize Ms. Cheney for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter a document into the record that's titled Overview and then frequently asked questions that initially appeared on Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's website and was submitted to NPR.
Without objection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate very much
this is about the Green New Deal, folks. This is what AOC introduced.
How we transition our communities to a so-called green economy.
This is what socialism
my state of
will
Wyoming,
get you.
as I'm sure our witnesses know, is the nation's largest coal-producing state. And we also know in Wyoming that coal is going to continue to be a crucially important source of baseload power for the nation, that the reliability is something that simply cannot be replaced, and that it's a national security issue in addition to an economic issue. And so my constituents are obviously very concerned about this notion that we're somehow going to transition over the course of 10 years here to an economy that is entirely run on green energy. And certainly they have concerns about the fossil fuel aspect of that. But I have to say one of the issues that people are particularly concerned about is the extent to which we're no longer going to have air travel, apparently, according to some of the frequently asked question answers we've seen. So I guess I'd like to start by asking each witness to tell me exactly how they arrived in Washington, D.C. for this hearing. And it's just a one-word answer. And I'll start with you, Ms. Farley.
A big white pickup truck.
Metro.
Plane.
Air and Metro.
Well, thank you very much. And so I'd like to ask, I would assume that each of the witnesses who believes that we should in fact move towards net zero emissions would say that we ought to do so gradually, not suddenly. And so I would ask, and I'll start with you, Ms. Farley, if you could describe for me perhaps exactly how we'll do that gradually. I would assume we're not just going to wait 10 years and then all of a sudden tell people they can't fly, but that we'll be in a situation where over the course of the 10 years we would somehow gradually work our way out of air travel. And I would also have to guess that that would involve some sort of prioritization. So I assume even my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who support the Green New Deal and perhaps the witnesses who support the Green New Deal wouldn't advocate, for example,
okay,
that
let me
we
pop this
cancel
down
things
right
like,
now.
Life flights. They wouldn't advocate that we
Here we have people in Congress that are talking about doing away AOC in her Green New Deal. Basically says that she wants to do away, we need to rely on trains, no planes because planes are terrible polluters. We're going to have to redo essentially all the buildings in the United States. This is again endemic and indicative of what socialists want. It's unsustainable, it's unachievable, and yet this is the pedestal on which people are holding the future with no regard whatsoever to where they're going to get any kind of money for this. This is absolutely unsustainable. I just had to play that because it's so stupid.
And I know we talked about that last week, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here because we've spent the last 45 minutes, 35 minutes or so on socialism. But I think for the Democratic primary, the candidates are trying to out-left themselves. And my hope is that they will be so far left that most of America will look at them and be like, oh, she's hell no. I'm hoping that most of the voters in America will be able to take a step back and look at Trump and his policies and versus the socialists and their policies and really separate the two out. I don't know that I have a lot of faith in that, particularly amongst younger voters, just because
they're ignorant. I'm sorry. I'm going to state the obvious.
They are,
because I think they're stultifyingly, brain glazingly ignorant. I can think of no other word for it.
They are, and let me say this: some of the most intellectual people that I've talked to, and the people that really understand principles and understand the philosophies in general are people who are more self-educated. And I know that flies in the face of every elitist, liberal college professor out there. But in schools today, they're not studying source documents. They don't go to the source and utilize critical thinking skills to analyze the text. What they're doing is they have a textbook, and they are fed somebody else's interpretation of those events.
Exactly.
And maybe there's a quote here or a quote there, but they are not getting the actual material. Like you printed out these chapters 6 through 8 from Rousseau and his social contract. And that is Rousseau himself, his writings, his words, his chapters, and that is what you have to go to and digest and look and read for yourself. And I think that we have a fundamental misunderstanding of the foundational principles and a fundamental misunderstanding of individual liberties and rights and government's job and responsibilities and the roles and responsibilities of the individual, because there is such a lack of first of all, going to the source documents and reading them and really seeing what it says and analyzing it for yourself, versus relying on whatever you learned in school, high school, college, whatever it is, and taking that interpretation as gospel and moving forward. We do not teach critical thinking skills anymore, and we do not go to source documents. I mean, look at the Common Core English curriculum. They want to take many of the classics out. They'll take a chapter or so, but they'll take a lot of the classic texts out of the Common Core. They want to push a particular point of view, and they believe it to be right, but they want to push a particular point of view and not offer an alternative, or more importantly, not teach from the source and then apply critical thinking skills and encourage debate and discussion.
You know what I want to do?
What's that?
I gave you and Sean the copy of the Eric Arthur Blair novel 1984.
Yes.
2 Christmases ago.
Yep.
My God, I'd love to do a 1984 show and get
Sure.
all the appropriate quotes out of 1984 and show how they are completely applicable today. Now, that Eric Arthur Blair was the true name of George Orwell, who wrote 1984. That was in 1947. My God, the intellect that back in 1947 saw what was coming right now in 2019, not just in Europe, but in many westernized countries, now having come across the pond into the United States of America. 1984 is more relevant now, I believe, in 2019, than people were willing to accede in 1947.
It is.
This guy was prescient. The other point that I want to make about this...
Well, real quick on that.
Sure.
1984, written in 1947, we were heading that direction. We'd had FDR. His New Deal was miserable. It was starting down that socialist agenda. We had Woodrow Wilson.
I was just going to say
27 years prior to that.
Your good
right?
friend Woodrow Wilson.
So he saw the Woodrow Wilson administration. He saw FDR and the New Deals and those policies that were coming into play. And I think he projected that out to 1984. Around this time, you also have World War II. So you have the socialist regimes of the fascist. Big government fascist through Nazi Germany, and you had big government communist with Russia, the Soviet Union, and so I think he could extrapolate this out and see what was happening. And 1984, that's an interesting date. What if Ronald Reagan had not been elected? How big of an administrative state would we have had? How big of a government would we have had we not had Ronald Reagan? Might 1984 actually have been the appropriate target date had Ronald Reagan not existed and we had 12 years, 8 years for sure of staunch conservative leadership and another 4 of George H.W. Bush? Did that push our timeline back? So I think it's an interesting discussion. I think that would make for an interesting show.
Imagining a second term of Mr. Peanut would... let me throw this out there. Did we have to have Carter to have Reagan?
Yes.
And did we have to have Obama to get Trump?
Yes. Absolutely.
I completely agree with both of those things. Let me go back a little bit further to what you were saying in terms of what people are teaching these days. Mm-hmm. I frequently have on as a guest here Professor Michael Jones, and he is a constitutional scholar. He used to teach con law, has been to numerous constitutional law classes, and he says essentially that they only concentrate in terms of con law, and sometimes only briefly, on stare decisis. And stare decisis basically means precedence.
Case law.
Case law.
Thank you, Woodrow Wilson.
Yes. But he continuously emphasizes that what they don't do anymore in con law classes, Harvard, Yale, Oxford, is they do not, and he says they purposely avoid teaching the history of the U.S. Constitution. Mm-hmm. And that is a massive part of what is required to understand the true meaning of the Constitution. How can you teach con law, and as he says, they purposely avoid the history of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? That's purposeful.
Did you show the textbook from 1828?
Oh no,
that I brought.
You brought a copy of a book that I want to get a copy of for myself, and let me turn.
So I got this from the National Center for Constitutional Studies, and it is a reprint. That is not the original. It is a reprint of a textbook from 1828 that was actually used in schools to teach school children the United States Constitution. And the way it does that, and you can open up to one of the page middle somewhere, it uses the Socratic method. It uses a question-answer style to where the teacher gives the question, and at first you read the answer, but you end up, as you go along, in this discussion about what the Constitution is. So it forces not just memorization, but understanding of what the Constitution is. So you go through the Constitution, you read it, you explain the different tenets, and then you ask questions and engage in this dialogue, this question-answer. And that's one thing that I do with my kids. But you know what? It is a fantastic read if you and most of our listeners I know are excellent, and they probably know the Constitution very well. But if you're a first-time listener, or if you have never really sat down and read the Constitution, or you really maybe just want to review it, understand it a little better, or hey, look, if you're a liberal and you're listening to this show because you hate us and you want to hear what the enemy's saying, order it. It's not that expensive.
No,
just go through and see if you have an understanding of our government. What could that hurt?
It's going to break you. It's $5.
What could that hurt? But I want to move on here real quick, because we talked about Trump's policies, and hoping people look at Trump's policies and not the fact that he's sometimes an a-hole on Twitter, because he is. And not just run to the socialism level, not believing that it's really true. Because let me tell you something. It's absolutely true. But something that got missed this week, the Trump administration is pushing for, and you know Richard Grenell, the ambassador to Germany.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Openly gay, right? I think he's the first openly gay U.S. ambassador put into position. And this is President Donald Trump, right? The man who hates everybody. Put him in power.
That's supposed to be Obama doing that.
No, this is President Trump. The Trump administration and Richard Grenell is actually meeting with other world leaders for this. The Trump administration is pushing for the worldwide to end the worldwide criminalization of homosexuality. This is the Trump administration doing this. This isn't the Obama administration. This wasn't the Clinton administration. This is the Donald Trump administration.
Well, that was the lead, right? That was the lead on every story, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN.
Did you see it anywhere?
CNBC. I'm sure that was the lead today, right? That was the lead.
Nope. NBC did report it. To be fair, NBC did report it, but I haven't seen much coverage on it anywhere else. That would be, if this was something, first of all, understanding, and you can have a religious discussion one way or another. Okay, that's fine. That's your individual religious beliefs. I have my religious beliefs as well. However, the libertarian in me, little L, you do what you want. Okay, the religious part of me. We are all sinners. Not one sin is worse than another. Every single one was one perfect man, right? That was Jesus. That's my belief. So I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to judge somebody, and if they want to make that personal choice, they can exercise their personal liberties and choices and engage in a sexual relationship with anybody of age of consent, 18 years or older, an adult, that they want. I do not think that homosexuality should be criminalized at all. I accept people for who they are, and I accept their ability to and respect the choices that they make, and it is what it is. Again, that's the libertarian in me. Hey, you do you. God bless you. Okay, but the fact that the Trump administration is pushing for an end to the criminality, which is homosexuality, in several other countries. And folks, it's not the United States, as much as the left, I'm sure, would want you to believe that. But they are pushing to decriminalize this.
That can't
look in some parts.
Right.
In some parts of the world, homosexuals are killed.
Well, homosexuals are thrown off various Middle Eastern roofs by Muslims because they are not in keeping with Muhammad.
This is a big deal. So to have a president go to bat for the gay community on a global scale is something that I would think the left would be cheering. It's something that they should be, that I would guess would be on the front page everywhere because, hey, look at what a big deal this is. Look who the Trump administration is standing up for on the global stage.
We're going to have to go to a break, but that goes to everything. And I mean everything that the leftists hate about Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, because he's doing the shit that he said he would, that few other presidents have had the guts to do. And, oh, by the way, he happens to make things happen. But you cannot acknowledge success. It's all got to be negative.
Oh, especially success on an issue that is so near and dear and owned, quote unquote, by the left.
Oh, my God. Well, and that I've got a story that we're going to talk about when we come back. When we come back, I'm going to talk about a story kind of about that. And then we're going to talk about a train. But, folks, what kind of train? Well, I don't know.
The Trump train?
The Trump train. That's it. Don't go anywhere. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
SHAT.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss
Newly
it.
confirmed Attorney General William Barr could reportedly announce as soon as next week that
Human
Special
by
Counsel
race,
Robert Mueller has finished
Christian
his
by
investigation
faith,
into potential collusion
American
between
by
Russia and the Trump
nationality,
campaign during
and
the
conservative
2016
by
election.
choice.
CNN
Reverend
reported
Ralph J.
Wednesday
Chittum
that Barr is
Sr.
planning to
is
submit
the
a
right
summary
guy
to
on
Congress of Mueller's final
SHR
and
Media
confidential
from
report shortly after
8:05
he
to
announces
9
the
p.m.
conclusion of the probe.
Monday
The network
through
reported
Friday.
that Barr could receive a
And
report
if
from
on the
Mueller by as soon as
verification
next
I
week.
am ever
It is
wrong,
said the exact
I
time
will
of Barr's
still
announcement could change, as
always
the Justice
be
Department
right.
is cautious of
The
not
right
interfering
guy
with President Trump's
on
upcoming
SHR
summit with
Media.
North Korea.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike,
recently had
Monday
a new
through
golf
Thursday
simulator installed
from
in his
7 to 9
personal
a.m.
quarters at the White
right
House,
here on
according to the
SHR Media.
Washington Post.
Why are
The
they joining
newspaper
us?
citing
For
multiple
fun things like
informed about the
sports,
system,
politics,
reported on Tuesday
Oh,
that the
maybe some
simulator
news and
cost about
entertainment?
and
$50,000
all kinds of
and
other
allows
things.
Trump to
Money
play
and
rounds of golf.
recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a
kind of
poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to The Shot Show. It's the Sackheads against tyranny. I'm Sackheads BZ. Over that away, right over there, that's Sackheads Clint as he's donning his headphones right now. We have gone and blasted through our first hour. We are now into our second hour. You can go and listen to us right now. Go to shrmedia.com. Quick like a bunny. You can go into the chat room right now. Listen at shrmedia.com. Go into the chat room where you can chat in the chat room, or you can watch us live right now on the SHR Media Facebook page or the SHR Media YouTube channel, simulcasting on both of those bad boys right this very damn second. So, Sackheads Clint, we got a ton of stories to go on. We have another hour. And I think we can get the bulk of these through. But you wanted to talk about something in particular. Right
I do. I want just like a couple minutes, real quick. I saw a story, and I thought that I think this speaks to the power of the Trump administration, and it has to do with North Korea. And there's a report that came out this week that North Korea is imprisoning and or executing opponents, which North Korea has done for a long time.
Historically, sure.
But it gets better. Not just opponents of him specifically, but as it relates specifically to his attempts at diplomacy with the United States, a.k.a. the Trump administration, and South Korea. Think about that for a second.
You can't write that stuff.
North Korea is putting people in prison and killing them because he's trying to have diplomatic relations with the United States and South Korea.
So
how backwards is that?
Don't disagree with the little round roly-poly dude when it's regarding Trump.
This report says between 50 and 70 people have been targeted in what the state-run media is depicting as an effort to combat corruption.
So, right, it's corruption if you disagree with the little round roly-poly guy.
Yeah, and look, a lot of it has to do with money. I think you look at the sanctions and stuff that have been put on. He's trying to have diplomatic ties with the United States and with South Korea. I think that little Kim has seen what China has done, and obviously he sees Hong Kong. I think he wants money for his country so he can continue doing his stuff. But if diplomatic ties are severed or undermined, North Korea will not be able to do any of their stuff because bad things will happen to him. I think Trump has made that perfectly clear. So the fact that the North Korean regime is now going after people who are trying to undermine or talk bad or oppose the diplomatic ties with two countries who have been enemies for decades, I think that's a big development. And I think
it's huge. And again, God.
He has done something that no other U.S. president has done.
Exactly. You have to admire, and you know for a fact that this would never the hell have happened under Obama or a Hillary Clinton presidency. End of statement. Done. Gone. Fini. Would not occur.
So let me ask you this question, BZ. If Donald Trump is able to negotiate an end to the Korean War, not just a ceasefire like they have now,
right,
but a end to the war, both sides sign an end to the war, do you think Trump will get credit for that? Will it matter?
It will matter because it's a big part of history. Number two is no, he will not get credit for that.
Will it matter to Americans?
They will.
It should.
It should.
It should.
But I cannot I cannot say that I'm guaranteed.
I don't think it will.
The bulk of Americans don't know what the Korean War was. Couldn't care less. And as far as they're concerned, Korean War, that's that cute little TV show called MASH.
Here's what I think would happen if there is not a complete cessation of hostilities and a peace treaty, a formal end to the war. I think the left would say, big deal. They haven't been fighting in years. Nobody's been fighting for years.
No.
It's really always been over. It's just formalized now. And the Republicans will be saying, he ended the Korean War.
It would be a massive minimization of that.
Can you see the argument now?
Oh, sure. It writes itself.
Yeah.
But the argument for that is the same argument that leftists are going to make upon any success that Donald Trump has.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Perfect. That is the perfect indicator that no. We do not exist to acknowledge any positivism, anything positive that Donald Trump may have done, has done, or may do in the future. We cannot even recognize
That's
that.
because he hasn't, he won't, and he never will.
Oh, as far as
in their mind.
As far
in
as
their
they're
mind.
concerned.
Yep. My 2 minutes are up. I've monopolized the show enough.
Okay. I saved this. I wanted to do it last week. I wanted to do it last week on my show. Never got around to it. I'm going to mention these two stories real quick because people need to know. Here's a study that just came out. This is from Washington Free Beacon. Study. Voter ID laws don't stop people from voting. There is no difference. This study found that there was no difference across race, gender, or party. Some kind of an analysis found. Strict voter ID laws do not suppress turnout. A new paper finds, regardless of sex, race, Hispanic, identity, or party affiliation. Requesting photo ID to vote is a hotly contested subject in America right now, obviously by the left in political discourse. And proponents argue that it's necessary to ensure against fraud and to preserve the integrity of the American electoral system. I completely agree. Opponents argue that it disenfranchises otherwise eligible voters, many of whom they're poor, they can't get to places that require ID, they cannot obtain ID. In total, 10 states, from Georgia to Wisconsin, require voters to show ID in order to vote. 7 of those states require photo ID. So the new research from this economics professor of the University of Bologna and another at Harvard Business School indicates that the strict voting laws of the type implemented in those 10 states do not have a statistically significant effect on voter turnout. So refer to this, folks, when you hear the left mention, oh, you can't have voter ID laws. That disenfranchises everyone. My one-word response is bullshit. Here's another one that I found out that I knew that if I mentioned this, people on the left, their heads are going to explode. And that's why I put it out on my blog. I put this out on Facebook. I put this out on Twitter. Just I wanted to see and experience leftists' heads exploding. This is from an obscure website that I just happened to stumble across. I think it's it's called Thema, THEMA, themanews.com, and I've never seen this before, but it's kind of a scientific type site. And the headline is this: "Stand by for explosions." I hope you're sitting down.
I'm sitting down. Scientists
discover DNA proving original Native Americans were white.
That's blasphemy.
Yeah, okay. Let me read that on.
Wouldn't that be funny if that was the origination of the white race is actually here in North America?
Okay, and
we found Caucasia.
It does. It does make kind of sense. But Native Americans. If I had a producer, what you would have heard is, and people's heads are going to be exploding because Native Americans, or their progenitors, were white, and you would have heard this. But, of course, I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. And a quote out of this article is, "This is a new population of Native Americans, the white Native American. A new discovery of ancient DNA may overturn the idea that Native Americans were the first to have populated the American continent. Instead, according to rawstreetjournal.com, a new group known as the ancient Beringians, I think I've got that right, Beringians, who are more closely related to modern white Europeans, has been discovered by researchers. Genetic analysis of a baby girl who died at the end of the last ice age shows she belonged to this previously unknown ancient group of Beringians, who were essentially white people. And how did they come here? They came here, and this makes sense, from the land bridge that occurred originally that basically separates, remember the island chain, the Aleutian Island chain? And then there was a land bridge there originally which connected essentially Asia over to North America. And people could have migrated across that.
So if I'm Caucasian, or you're Caucasian, or somebody's Caucasian, does that mean that they're Asian?
Or does it mean that we're all Native Americans on this bus?
You know what? I think that the Caucasoids started here in North America and migrated over to Europe. I believe that Europe has been invaded by the Caucasoids, and that the white person is the true Native American here, and that the other Native Americans, like Elizabeth Warren, have tried to co-opt our culture.
That's it. You have hit upon it, mister, and that's exactly
right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who says that didn't happen?
That makes as much sense as anything else that I've heard. But I wanted to mention that story because I knew that when leftists heard that, their heads would explode. Here's another story that I want to make sure that you knew. Californians back in, help me out with this, I would guess 2014, 15, right around in there, 14 or 15, voted for a proposition so that they could have high-speed rail from Los Angeles up to San Francisco.
1A.
And Proposition 1A. Okay, thank you very much for that. So that they could have high-speed rail. And initially it was sold for a purchase price, if I'm not mistaken, of about $8 billion. That was what they surmised that the total project would cost.
I don't remember.
$8 billion. At tops...
I'll believe you, but I don't remember.
At tops, maybe about $12 billion. Okay, well, $77 billion later...
Hang on a second. 77, 8. That's more than 8.
Yeah, it is. It is. By a factor of a few.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, a lot. So... this is a grand story, This is from hotair.com. This is Ed Morrissey's website. Trump admin to Newsom. Oh, first, let me back up a little bit. Governor Newsom, Gavin Newsom, is the new governor in the state of California. Jerry Brown is gone. Gavin Newsom was elected. We knew that Gavin Newsom was essentially going to be much further left than Jerry Brown. And people say, what? Yeah, but it's true. Mm-hmm. So last week, as I indicated, and Kaiser points this out in the chat room, I talked about this last week, Gavin Newsom said, well, he's going to have to, he realizes that this $77 billion is untenable. And so now, instead of high-speed rail from all the way down in Los Angeles, maybe San Diego, up the going as far north as we possibly can, at least Sacramento, and to parts beyond, perhaps. Well, he's going to cut it down to, I think, what did he say? Merced to Bakersfield. Now, everyone knows that in California, there are an assload of people that want to get somehow, magically, mystically, from Merced to Bakersfield. So Gavin Newsom, in his infinite wisdom, has decided that he's going to shrink down the high-speed rail project right now because he's trying to save $77 billion.
Oh, wait, but it's not going to be high speed because we can't replace all that track. So now it's just going to be a rail.
It's just going to be a rail.
Right.
Yeah.
Like literally one rail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
High-speed rail, yeah, a bullshit alert. That's not going to be high-speed rail. Now from hotair.com comes this story. Glorious. The Trump administration has now said to Governor Gavin Newsom, you know what? I think we're going to be coming for your high-speed rail money, pal.
Yeah.
I love that. And guess what? It's true. Gavin Newsom he wants to keep the federal monies because federal money from D.C. was shipped to California for this high-speed rail project. And people who have worked for grants, I've worked for a grant before from the federal government. You have to kick out reports. The government wants to know how you're spending money, and if you don't spend it appropriately, and if you don't kick out the reports in a timely fashion, then they pull their grant. That's happened to people in my department before. I know of somebody individual who didn't make an appropriate report and a response and got the grant pulled by the federal government. So if it happened to me, why shouldn't it happen to anybody else? So Gavin Newsom decided that he wants to keep all the federal subsidies for California's our little stunted high-speed rail, which is not really, as you mentioned, high-speed rail. But now Trump wants the cash back. So Newsom, like I said, he reset the project, and the connection between it was a 10-figure project to connect two cities with a population of under 600,000. And the governor declared that he's going to hang on to $3.5 billion from Washington. And now Trump is saying, no, I don't think so. So you're going to get a suit for that. Here's another story. And this is the one that I sent to you.
You got time.
I think we can do this from now to the bottom of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
There are two stories that come out. And they're both about DNA. And when I tell you about the first one, when I read this first one, and then I sent you the information, you said, oh, it processed to you, not Arizona, but it processed to you Amazon. Okay.
It did.
And so I get that. I understand. But here's what really happens. Let's go to Arizona, the state of Arizona.
Not Amazon.
Not Amazon.
The one that pulled out of New York.
Exactly. They withdrew before, certain terrible things occurred.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's, one form of birth control. AZ Central said, this is a headline, you may soon have to give your DNA to the state of Arizona and pay $250 for the privilege. Now let me ask you, does anybody here see any kind of an initial problem with that headline, with that statement? BZ sticks up his hand and says, I see some issues with that. Arizona could soon be one of the first states to maintain a massive statewide DNA database, and if the proposed legislation passes, many people from parents, school volunteers, and teachers to real estate agents and foster parents are going to have no choice but to give up their DNA. Senate Bill 1475, which Senator David Livingston, Republican.
Which shocked me.
Republican.
Yep.
Introduced DNA must be collected from anyone who has to be fingerprinted by the state for any kind of a job, to volunteer in certain positions, or for a whole host, a myriad of other reasons. And it would even authorize the medical examiner's office in each county to take DNA from any bodies that come into their possession. The DPS, Arizona DPS, which is the Department of Public Safety, would maintain the collected DNA alongside the person's name, social security number, date of birth, and last known address. Stop. Okay. Sackheads Clint, do you see any issues with this?
No, none whatsoever.
Okay. I don't see any Fourth Amendment issues at all. No.
Nope, none.
I don't see any
Nope,
privacy issues with this.
Nope, sounds good.
Nope.
Sounds good to me.
We should be able to do this.
Absolutely
I said
not.
this before.
Absolutely not.
This is one of the...
Hell no.
This is 1984 writ large by a stupid fucking Republican who should know better, but apparently clearly does not. Mm-hmm. I would expect this out of a John McCain. I would expect this maybe out of a Jeff Flake. And what the hell is it with Arizona, where you've got Republicans like Flake and McCain, and apparently this guy, Livingston, a Republican, who thinks that they're going to be able to get away with abrogating and truly eliminating the Fourth Amendment, your right to privacy, and the invasion, unreasonable searches and seizures. That is unreasonable.
Yeah, to get somebody's genetic code.
Because you know that you have, sooner or later, humans will always push the envelope, and humans will always cheat and steal. Now, here's where I make a connection. Anybody, and this is my opinion, anybody that goes to Ancestry.com or submits your DNA to any of those agencies, you're a moron.
Mm-hmm.
You're a goober. Oh, but I want to know about my ancestry, and did they come from Poland? You know what they've already done with your DNA, and this has been proven. Your DNA doesn't belong to you. It belongs to somebody else, and it's already been sold. This has been proven time and again through Ancestry or any other .com.org that you can possibly think of. It gets sold because just like social media, you are a commodity on social media. You are a commodity. Your DNA is a commodity, a saleable commodity, which has already been sold. Now, here's what's in your future. A database is going to be created. It will be sold. The state of Arizona will sell it. Any other state that comes up with this vapid idea is going to sell it as well. There will be commercial data banks. If you think that that shit is going to stay in just one government data bank, you are a fucking stegosaurus, and you don't deserve to live. It's going to explode. DNA collection is going to explode. And here's what your future is for your kids. Insurance companies will get this and demand to take your DNA. And then if they find that you have a history of fill in the blank, genetic defects, etc., that's going to be a discriminant in terms of whether they're even going to sell you insurance. And if they deign to sell you insurance, they will already know your genetic markers. They will already have broken down the human genome, and they will be able to know and figure out whether you're worth insuring. Because they're going to go back to their actuary tables and they're going to look and see, well, you know, there's a history of Down syndrome in your family X number of generations back, and we're not going to insure your family for Down syndrome because that's a lot of money that you're going to have to spend on your child, your baby, your son, your daughter, any other disease that's passed on down the line. That's going to be kept. I got 2 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. I'm going to go to this story next. If you think that this is limited to Arizona, you would be oh so fucking wrong. Because I had to go across the pond to find this as well. This is from dailystar.com. In the UK, the United Kingdom. The headline is this: the FBI is plotting to keep DNA of the entire population on file to create a nation of suspects. Now stop. I'm telling you right now that already many states collect DNA when you're arrested for, say,
felony,
sex crime or a felony. So DNA is, in fact, collected. And depending upon the terms of a sentence, when you are convicted, part and parcel of that can be, especially if you go on parole, probation, etc., can be the acquisition because you are now a convicted misdemeanant or a convicted felon. And actually, it's convicted felon in the state of California. And your DNA is subject to collection because now you are a convicted individual. And your DNA is subject to that. And it is, in fact, kept in a database. But we just don't go willy-nilly around the rest of the state, even though this is California, and collect the shit just to make sure that we can do it. So the FBI is creating a nation of suspects by putting every American citizen's DNA on file, according to a shocking claim by a U.S. think tank. I got about one more minute. I'll be able to finish this up. President Donald John Trump signed the Rapid DNA Act into law, which means the police can routinely take DNA samples from people who are arrested but not yet convicted of a crime. The law was signed in 2017, but wait, there's more. That think tank also said that the eventual goal of the FBI, they're going to be initially the central repository of all of this stuff, like the FBI originally was the central repository of fingerprints, because when you rolled prints in the 80s, when I used to roll prints, we'd roll a Fed card, we'd roll a state card, we'd roll a local card, and one of those went to the FBI, especially if it was a felony, if you did major case prints on something like that. So the reason that I went to that is because Arizona is linked with DNA. The FBI is linked with DNA. If you think that government has your welfare in mind, this, in my opinion, is nothing more than the continuation of a police state. When I say that it's 1984 in 2019, I'm telling you, folks, it's 1984 in 2019.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
New show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Shat Show, the Sackheads Against Tyranny, featuring Sackheads Clint, who is right across from me, and Sackheads BZ, who it is I wearing my Trump 2020 hat right now. Thanks to everybody in chat. Thanks to everybody who's been in chat. Thanks to everybody who's going to be in chat. Right here, it's called Chat. Go to shrmedia.com. Quick like a bunny. You can still listen to the rest of the show. And I gave you a couple of stories. We still haven't finished all of our stories yet. I'm going to go to another one. I'd like Sackheads Clint to weigh in on this one.
Ooh.
I know. This is a California story. This is from a website called Equality California.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, doesn't it though? Because like you said, like all of these things that we talked about in the Rousseau article, socialism, etc., that on its face, it kind of sounds okay, doesn't it? I mean, who
sounds
wouldn't?
Nice. Who doesn't want equality?
Who doesn't want equality?
Right? Now
for everyone, especially in California. Hence, equality.
Is that the one I sent you?
California, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
were you surprised that I even found it on that website?
No.
What was I doing looking at that website? It's weird.
But see, that's the cool thing is you'll frequently bring a story in here that I will not have heard, which is why I value that you go out and get stories in all sorts of places of crap that I frequently miss, and you bring it in, and that's why I love you, dude. This is called Equality California, and under the website, it says, until the work is done. So Equality California, boys and girls, until the work is done. The headline is this. Senator Wiener, yes, we have a Senator Wiener here in California. Mm-hmm. It's not the
Shocking.
It's not the one you're thinking of, but when you hear this, you might go, apropos. Senator Wiener introduces legislation to end discrimination against LGBTQ young people.
That's nice.
Okay, doesn't on its face.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound kind of interesting? Sponsored by Equality California and the Los Angeles County District Attorney, SB 145 puts a stop to LGBT young people going on the sex offender registry when similarly situated young straight people do not. And this is for immediate release. Today, Senator Scott Wiener, San Francisco, Democrat, of course, introduced Senate Bill 145 to end blatant discrimination against LGBT young people regarding California's sex offender registry. Currently, for consensual yet illegal sexual relations between a teenager age 15 and over and a partner within 10 years of age.
Whoa, within how many years?
10 years of age.
So a 25-year-old would be able to have sexual intercourse with a 15-year-old.
Yeah, well, that's 10 years, isn't it?
Yes.
Sure.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? Thank you for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
Because, what's that little acronym that goes WW? What would? Why wouldn't you want to do that or something like that? Anyway, moving right along. Okay, a teenager, age 15 and over, and a partner within 10 years of age, sexual intercourse. Those are in air quotes, i.e. vaginal intercourse, does not require the offender to go onto the sex offender registry. Rather, the judge decides, based on the facts of the case, whether sex offender registration is warranted or unwarranted. By contrast, for other forms of intercourse, specifically oral and anal intercourse, sex offender registration is mandated under all situations with no judicial discretion.
So, clearly, if you're heterosexual, you may not go on the registry. But if you're gay and you're a sex offender, you definitely will. So we need to fix that.
Well, doesn't that seem to do with this law here, SB 145?
Think about that, folks.
Yeah.
Think about what is being legalized.
Listen to what Clint is going to tell you right now. And remember, this is California. And remember, California is a disease. And if you come into California, when you leave California, if you do, you're bringing that disease with you. Mm-hmm. California is a festering disease. So illuminate and enlighten people, please.
This is
Clint.
Well, on which part? I mean,
as many as you wish.
I mean, Texas is in the process of turning purple because of people from California bringing their politics there. Look at what Florida took out an ad saying, if you're coming from New York, leave your politics in New York.
Case in point.
But folks, understand this. The left is now saying that, well, because if you have penile to vaginal intercourse, you may not be placed on the sex offender registry. We want to make it okay for you to have underage sex if you're in the LGBTQ community.
Because why wouldn't you?
And also make sure that you don't end up on that registry. And we're going to say it's okay if that sex is... We're going to take it a step further and say it's okay if that sex takes place between two consenting individuals.
Yeah,
not adults. Two consenting individuals who are within 10 years age difference.
10
that
years.
Is basically saying that if you're a pedophile... That is basically saying if you're a pedophile, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You will not be placed.
And I would argue that this protects pedophiles more than it does the heterosexual community.
Yes.
Do pedophiles, I mean, yes, some pedophiles will diddle little girls, but a lot of pedophiles will diddle little boys.
A minimal number.
And how would you know, BZ? What experience could you possibly have to be able to speak intelligently on this? You're not a legislator.
I already went off. I literally corked off on this about a week ago.
Oh, fuck.
When the pattern is known now that pedophiles
are trying to be...
and we
talked about that last week, too.
And last week, too. They're trying to be mainstream.
Well, hey, this is now...
And now this 145, SB 145, is nothing more than an attempt to do exactly
because
that.
Understand what could have just as easily happened. What could just as easily have happened is the legislator could have said, well, there's a loophole where a heterosexual intercourse with a minor may not get you on the registry. We're going to change that.
Right, see, because it was essentially a judge's discretion.
Right, we're going to remove, we are the legislature, we are going to remove the judge's discretion and put in a mandatory lifetime 290 membership.
That's right. Or you will not be, dint of this bill, placed as an RSO, which is a registered sex offender in the state of California.
290 membership.
Yeah. Isn't this grand?
But that's what could have happened. But no, they do the opposite. Well, we're gonna take that away. Oh, and if you're within 10 years, that's okay too.
Yeah, because just because you have 10 years brain development ahead of someone that's 10 years younger than you, That's okay. That's
or at 14 years old. So
Yeah,
I think it's
that's-
under 14, right? So
Sure,
14 years old, and a
that's fair play.
24-year-old.
That's fair.
For those of you who are parents out there, gay, lesbian, heterosexual, doesn't matter. Would you want your 14 or 15-year-old or 16-year-old or 17-year-old in a sexual relationship, legal sexual relationship? Would you want them in an illegal sexual relationship? Would you want them in a sexual relationship with a 24, 25, 26, or 27-year-old adult? Would you want your 17-year-old engaging in sexual relations with a 27-year-old adult man or woman? Would you want your 15-year-old not even driving yet? Would you want your 15-year-old in a sexual relationship with a 24 or 25-year-old?
Come on. They're just numbers. Age is just a number.
Not at that age, it's not.
Oh, come on. You seem
not
you
at
seem
that age.
awfully
It's not.
harsh and
I'm going to get angry now, and I don't want to get angry. I have a
Okay.
story for you now, smartass.
Okay.
This came from BNN, and it's LAPD to graduate undocumented worker academy class. Los Angeles, California, LAPD. Long a pioneer of new police trends, will graduate a groundbreaking new class of cadets from the police academy on Wednesday. So I want to say this is from February 13th. This is by Chris Fisher from BNN, and the name of the story is LAPD to graduate undocumented worker academy class. So hear me out. This class, made up entirely of undocumented workers, is thought to be the first of its kind. Lieutenant Jason McShay, who is in charge of the department's recruiting unit, says, Los Angeles is one of the most diverse and inclusive communities in the world. Our department demographic needs to match the community we serve, and a significant part of our community is undocumented. We as an agency want to ensure those valuable members of our city do not feel marginalized. Resident Jennifer James says she welcomes the change. I just feel like, undocumented officers are a good thing. They came here to work, right? And they probably aren't racist. McShay also added, this is definitely one of the most diverse classes we've ever had. Wait for it. We have officers from Guatemala, Venezuela, and Canada. We even have 2 from Afghanistan. Think about the law enforcement access. 2 from Afghanistan. It's a great thing we're doing for our community. A prepared statement from the mayor's office read, quote, we are proud to help these migrant workers live the American dream. They will be a huge asset in bringing criminals to justice and enforcing the established laws of the land. And enforcing the established laws of the land.
Right, because we want to make sure that these people have equal access to every law enforcement
This academy
database.
class has been something to see. Last paragraph. Recruiting for police jobs has become increasingly difficult, and this move is expected to fill the ranks of the police department. At the time of printing, none of the class members have responded to requests for interview. So again, I read that article verbatim from BNN, the BlueNewsNetwork.com. The author is Chris Fisher. And I want to read a bio from the author, Chris Fisher. He says, quote, I enjoy writing satirical articles that are complete bullshit with a terrifying amount of believability. It's all in fun. Don't get so worked up about it. My question for you.
Okay. Well, okay.
My question for you.
I know what you're going. I know where you're going.
Did you believe it?
I did.
Okay.
And I'll wager everybody else did.
Yes. So, and this is my point.
Yes. Okay. No, go for it.
Okay.
No, I know where you're going. Go for it.
This is my point. I read this article and I was like, what in the actual fuck is Los Angeles doing?
Yes.
And I got angry and I believed
Yes.
it. I wanted more articles. I wanted to confirm it was actually true. I was ready to call this McShay guy and get a statement. But then I read all the way to the bottom and I thought, holy shit. The fact that I believed it shows how screwed up California is.
I bet that you were about this far away from going Vesuvius on that dude.
Yes. Oh, yes. Just like you were over there.
Knowing you, I can see you. Now the vessels are standing out in your forehead, and the cords, and the tendons in your neck are starting to stand out, and you're starting to sweat under your eyes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my eyes may have started to bleed. They may have. But I thought immediately after I read that, and I was like, okay, I've been got. By the way, that article was forwarded to me by somebody who believed it was true.
But as you say,
read all the way to the bottom.
As you say, why did they believe it?
Oh yes, but that's what I thought.
Because what we know in Leftville, in California, in Illinois, in New York, in Massachusetts, in all the leftist enclaves and states, we know that this do you disagree that this is not an end goal? This is an end game for them. I believe it to be true.
Of course it is. And what struck me the most about that whole thing was the fact that I, and so many people obviously, believe that to be true. That could happen. Holy shit, that could have happened. Absolutely.
You bit?
Absolutely.
And I bit.
And again, BlueNewsNetwork.com. Chris Fisher is the article is the author of that article. Okay. We read it verbatim. Oh man,
I got it. I'll put up my hand. Guilty. I bid on that thing. We've got about 10 more minutes to go. I want to throw some other stories out there and then get your thoughts on these.
I'm going to play that segment back just to watch your face again.
I would have to look and see if I actually put my face on video so that you can see it when it went through.
I hope so, because I was looking at you and that was pretty damn funny.
Here's a story that you're going to say, it's A, it's about time, and B, let's see, this took about 35 seconds to occur under a new regime, and that's this. CNN, of all places, came out with an article that The Hill picked up, which said that basically the DOJ under Barr, the new AG, Barr, is preparing to announce the end of the Robert Mueller probe, possibly as soon as next week. The story goes, newly confirmed Attorney General William Barr could reportedly announce as soon as next week that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has finished his investigation into potential collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign during the 2016 election. Stop.
He's been in office how long?
Yeah, about a week.
Okay.
But there was a rolling underlying subtext to this that I noted came out of CNN, and a couple of minor articles from CNN and a couple of left-leaning news organizations that were saying something similar to, when the Mueller report actually comes out, parenthesis, if it comes out at all, we'll get to that in a second. But when the Mueller report comes out, I think what they were doing is attempting to assuage the fears of leftists, or kind of get them into the right mindset of, it ain't going to be what you think it's going to be, meaning that there will be no direct and concrete proof linking Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, to Russian collusion or election meddling involving President Trump. Because you and I both know, anybody with half a brain would know, as I've said for years, two Hell's Angels can keep a secret if one is dead. If there had been massive collusion to be found, Mueller would have found it, and nobody can keep a secret. It would have popped off because the Mueller investigation has already leaked. Mm-hmm. That has been proven. Mm-hmm. So knowing that that's the nature of humanity, that's the nature of people. Now we've got an article, a story coming out from CNN saying Barr just came out and he's wrapping this thing up. And I want to point out, he's only been in here for about a week. And already he's what I consider to be KATN, kicking ass apparently and taking names and getting rid of the deadwood. And any right-thinking individual knows that the Robert Mueller investigation consists of a lot of deadwood.
Now, let me ask you this. if there was something in the investigation, if Mueller had something concrete and needed additional time or follow-up, do you believe that Attorney General Barr would have let him proceed?
I do.
I do as well.
Because I don't believe, from everything that I've read, William Barr is a guy of
integrity,
of integrity and ethics. So I would wager that somewhere along the line, he's probably touched base, or other portions, who knows what portions of the human body, with Robert Mueller to determine, okay, look, Bob,
what do you got?
What do you got? And where are you going? Are you on the cusp of something astounding? Because if so,
proceed.
I'll give you some more time. But talk to me, dude. Talk to me. My guess would be Robert Mueller talked to him. So what have we got? I've said for over a year and a half, the crimes that were unearthed were crimes of process that did not occur before the Mueller investigation. The Mueller investigation created these crimes where people lied to the FBI. Damn you for lying to the FBI. If you're silly, stupid, or fattening enough to do that, that crap's on you.
How is it a crime to lie to the FBI?
Well, it's not a crime for the FBI to lie to you.
Yeah. You should be able to lie to the government, right?
Well,
I mean, it looks bad, but is it really criminal?
The government lies to you all the time.
All the time. So my next question is this. Does Barr go after McCabe and the others
I don't even have any stories.
In a treason?
I don't have any stories on McCabe, but McCabe came out with a book, and people are coming out of the closet left and right to say, McCabe, you are continuing to lie. Your book is a lie. Your statements are a lie. The things that you wrote in the book about me that I've heard from at least 3 individuals are saying, you've quantified everything about me absolutely factually incorrect. Continuing the running theme that McCabe is a liar. Now, I got to go one more story.
Sure.
And again, I would like...
So is he going to be prosecuted? Are they going to go after him?
I believe so.
Okay.
For
treason?
No.
Okay.
No. I kind of tend to think that they're going to treat him like they're going to treat, say, Flynn or Manafort.
I think every one of those, if the second 25th Amendment discussions were real and these investigations were done to... Like you said,
sure.
as a coup, I think that they need to be taken to task 100%. I know you got one more story.
Oh, Rod Rosenstein. Okay, that's all going to lead to Rod Rosenstein. And if it leads to him, it ought to lead to Obama. But that's a story for another day. One more story. And by the way, I do think that everything does ultimately lead to Obama. He is not stupid, and he kept his finger on the pulse of everything.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Guaranteed. We're talking about the media. And we're talking about how the media is terribly biased. This, I think, is a great story, but I want to hear your input on it. Covington Catholic High student's lawyer has now decided that he's going to sue the Washington Post. And he said essentially that he believed the Washington Post has weaponized many prior situations. So the Covington Catholic High School student is suing the Washington Post. Dig this. $250 million. And he said the lawsuit isn't about the money. It's about the message. So Todd McMurtry is the lawyer representing the student Nicholas Sandman. And Sandman is 15, something like that. And his name was slimed. And if this weren't to have occurred, his name would have been slimed in perpetuity, because everything on the internet is forever. Everything is forever. The lawsuit accuses the Post, this is a quote, of using its vast financial resources to enter the bully pulpit by publishing a series of false and defamatory print and online articles to smear a young boy who was, in its view, an acceptable casualty in their war against the president. I agree with that completely. And the attorney for Sandman is saying, this is only the first bus stop. We've got a whole bunch more stops that we're going to be making in the next 2 years. And to this guy and that kid, I say, straight on ahead. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not a fan of social media. I don't like what it has done to our society. And I don't like... What's that?
Completely agreed.
Yeah, I don't like... You look at this one incident. and how this 15-year-old boy has had just a hell of a time because of how he was attacked on social media, bullied, to use a term that people want to fight against nowadays. He was bullied online, and for something he didn't do, which is the worst part. But let's say he did. We know he didn't. We've seen the whole video, but let's say he did. Does that mean that a 15-year-old deserves to be put on blast and bullied and threatened and have death threats made? Absolutely not.
Well, and they wouldn't stop.
And
Do you think they would stop in 5 years?
But
what makes it
what makes it even worse is that he didn't do anything wrong. He was a victim in this case, really. You had an adult that was really coming up and starting issues, it seemed, with a juvenile or with a group of kids,
and the Black Hebrew group, who were literally cursing and threatening a 15-year-old. Well, that takes a man to do that.
So, look, good on them. I think that I understand that there's First Amendment issues, right? Because they're going to say, "Oh, we thought we had the facts." Well, you thought wrong. So does it come down to a question of you're required to do due diligence?
Well, wait. Okay, you mentioned facts. Mm-hmm. Why is it that other people were able to unearth the facts and discover the facts when apparently the Washington Post, feted as a major newspaper in a major market where, democracy dies in darkness. What I say is democracy dies in D.C., but the Washington Post is supposed to be a great newspaper. Why couldn't they find that information? Other people did. Why not them?
Yeah. Because they didn't look. It doesn't fit their narrative.
Thank you. And for those of you who just tuned in, thank you. It's Aloha time.
It's nice, soothing music.
I know, I like this.
Nice soothing. We need, you know why? Because we need to soothe our listeners after we piss them off for the last 2 hours.
after we've sent them into the 210 over 190 area. So, folks, you were listening to the Shad Show. That's Sackheads Clint, right over there, and I'm Sackheads BZ. We're going to be back next Wednesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Clint will be sitting right over there. I'll be sitting right over here.
Yes.
And we will have more great stories just for you because we are the Sackheads and we are against tyranny. God bless everybody. Good night. Tune in tomorrow night. The Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show.